Phone.
Sorry about this, people. We're having a little bit of technical issues. Is Carolyn?
Yes, I'm here. We have the meeting ready to go, Dan.
Oh,
Wasn't sure there for a hot minute, but we're good.
okay. Waiting on Kathy to get signed in. There he is. There she is.
Hey, everybody. Just small technical difficulties. You know, because this is Zoom and everything.
There she is.
Okay, since people are still trying to see if they can get connected or not, we might wait a few minutes before we get this meeting started, so. Does anybody still have snow on their driveways? We do.
I do.
But it's decreasing. It's getting cleared. Dan, what kind of icon do you have on your Zoom?
That's my
What is
Google
that?
account. Crazy.
You're on mute. You're not on.
There he
That's
is.
interesting.
I saw him.
Jackie, is that you on the phone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Got your email
Yeah.
earlier, but I haven't had a chance to respond, so we can chat tomorrow or
Okay.
something.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So order because we've got a pretty full agenda, but I think it'll go pretty smoothly as well. So shouldn't be any major hiccups if we don't have any Zoom technical difficulties. Cliff, is that Cliff Brown that's zoomed in? Is that you, Cliff?
Well, I'm actually zoomed in, not on the phone, but I am here.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Cliff, for joining us. I appreciate it. We'll be chatting about Vitus Energy a little bit later.
And thank you. Yeah, the last one that I had tried to attend, the actual link didn't show up till the day after it was over. And it was like, wow. So at least this one showed up for the same day.
Okay. Okay, I don't even want to address that. I just can't. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at, let's see, what time is it? 6:37. So we can get started here. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm Kathy Gleason, Acting President of Turnagain Community Council. And I will officially call this meeting to order. So I don't know that we need to go over Zoom meeting etiquette and guidelines unless people feel like that's important. I mean, it is important, but I think everybody's pretty familiar with how these things are run by now. If you rename yourself and put whether you're your first and last name and whether you're a guest or TCC member, that would be great. Carolyn, do you have anything quick to add on that topic?
I don't believe so, other than if you'd like to participate in the discussion topics, please either raise your hand physically or raise your hand virtually by using the reactions emoji at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, and thank you, Carolyn, as always, for getting us lined up on this Zoom stuff. We appreciate it. Okay, we need to approve the agenda. And I do have something that we'll be doing just to accommodate Senator Matt Clayman, and he is joining us right now. He's got some time conflicts, and so he needs to go pretty quickly. We'll do that after we approve. Well, since we're starting a little bit late, I'm going to go ahead and have Matt, you jump in after we approve our agenda so that you can provide your report and then move on with all the other fun stuff that you have, I'm sure, in your busy life. So could I have a motion to approve the April 6th, 2023 TCC agenda?
This is
I so
Pat.
move.
Oh, Pat Redmond, are you saying move?
I'll second.
Jackie?
Jackie's
Yes.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any amendments to provide for our agenda this evening? If not, anybody object to the approval as submitted? Okay, the agenda is approved with no objection. Have you?
Mhm.
Kathy, I think you might have frozen, or it might be my internet. I'm not sure.
No, it's not your internet.
Is my
There-
internet not working?
We can kind of hear you now, but you froze for a good chunk there.
We've been,
And you're frozen.
everybody,
We
Kathy,
need to have,
we can barely hear you. You're breaking up back and forth.
Kathy, you want to try turning your video off? Maybe you already did that, but sometimes that helps.
We actually lost her.
so then we should probably go ahead and have Matt do his thing.
Yeah.
Sure, I can go ahead. Anyway, good evening. It's been a busy week in Juneau, and just glad to be here this evening. I think those that have been watching, the House has been debating the budget all week. I was actually out at the Capitol on a tour of the Kensington mine today, so I can't give you an update on the latest on the House budget, but the House budget's just the first in the kind of steady budget process. The Senate will be working through the budget here in the next few weeks. And I still remain very optimistic even with some of the differences that we have amongst different members of the House and Senate. Pretty optimistic that we'll finish the legislative session on time. There have been, I think, again, the budget is always our most important task. Coconut gas has been getting we've had a number of hearings to learn more about coconut gas and some of the questions about how that's coming. And mostly here to answer any questions you all may have. I'm not sure what are the highest priorities. Capital budget is, again, I think pretty well known. We don't have a lot of extra money. So the most likely target for the capital budget is going to be matching funds to make sure we maximize the federal dollars that are available. And there's certainly a lot of attention paid to ferry system funding because Senator Murkowski raised a lot of money in federal dollars that we need to match to keep the ferry system going well. But mostly here to answer questions you all may have.
okay, does anybody have any questions for Matt? Anything that's going on down in Juneau?
This is Pat. I have a question regarding, and I should have the bill in front of me. The changes that were being made for architects and engineers.
That's legislation that I've sponsored, and we've got our first hearing next week in the Senate Labor and Commerce Committee. It's been an interesting process because the bill tries to make it so that interior designers are going to be able to stamp drawings that are narrowly focused on their scope of practice. There's kind of a mix. Some architects in town are supporting it. The American Institute of Architects is officially against it. And we're just continuing a lot of discussions. I'm pleased that both the interior designers and the architects are actually meeting regularly to see if they can resolve some of the differences, but we're also working to move the legislation forward as well.
I guess I was concerned because of the fact that it could make changes in some of the building codes. And that's, I mean, it just seems like it's a little step too far. Anyway, and the other question I had was on legislation regarding, doing away with the, I forgot it has to do with the voting on the national popular vote.
Oh, so the national popular vote legislation, we've heard that in the Senate Judiciary Committee. I think there's a House sponsor, but it hasn't been heard in the House. And
Okay.
I think we'll probably hear it again on Senate Judiciary Committee. It's Senator Kawasaki, or actually it's Senator Willikowski's bill. I think we'll probably have another hearing on it in Senate Judiciary in the next couple of weeks. I would say because the House bill hasn't been getting hearings, the odds that it gets passed, at least this calendar year, is not super high, but it's getting some hearings.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Anybody else have any questions for Matt? It looks like you're getting off pretty easy, Matt.
Well, thank you. I'll stay on the line for a little bit, but I've got to duck out of here in about 10 more minutes. So I'll be off video, but listening. But everyone have a
Okay,
great holiday
thank you
weekend.
so. Thank you, you too. Okay, next on our agenda, we'll just kind of shift back to what was released. We
Kathy?
have draft, yes.
Kathy,
Carolyn.
real quick, I'm so sorry to interject, but I just want to let you know that Jake with AFD is on the line. And at some point, if there's time permitting, he has a couple of things he'd like to bring to our attention. If you approve.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get through minutes from November, and then we can certainly let him jump right in. So the reason why we are looking at approving our November 3rd, 2022 draft minutes, and thank you very, very much to Kathleen Belowski for putting those together for us, is they reflect the election results for our 2023 officer and board. And we need those to take to Northrim Bank so that we have new people, and that will be Carolyn and me, put on the account to do our business, all that spending that we do with our meager funds. So it's kind of important that we get these minutes reviewed and approved. So they were sent out with the meeting notice. So can I have a motion to approve the November 3rd, 2022 TCC meeting minutes?
Kathy, I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the minutes.
Okay. Sure.
I would like to amend the election results because at
Well, sorry, Carolyn. I think we need a motion to approve, so we just kind of open that up and
Okay.
then we can look at amendments. So do you want to go ahead and move to approve the minutes?
yes, I will move to approve. Thank you.
Okay, and can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, Carolyn, why don't you jump in again?
Thank you. Sorry about that. I appreciate the procedural guidance there. I would like to move to approve the results as they are listed in the minutes, because presently they have myself, presently it's listed as Kathy Gleason for vice president, myself for treasurer, but then it's also listed as myself for member at large, seat 1, and Ariel Wiggin for member at large, number 2. When I believe Stephanie Quinn Davidson should be listed as the other member at large and not myself, since I'm treasurer.
Okay, thanks, Carolyn. Would somebody please second Carolyn's amendment?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jackie. I appreciate it. Okay.
Oh, did we lose Kathy again? Dan, can you please let Kathy know that we lost her?
We lost you, Kathy. You're breaking up again.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, we have some internet problems here. We're fixing it.
Yeah, someone may have to actually call her on her phone to let her know that she's out, that she got bumped again.
Well, Dan, are you with Kathy at the moment? Could she join you on
I'm
your screen?
upstairs and she's downstairs. Let me go downstairs and fix this.
Mm.
What do I do?
Here. Here,
Here, what?
use mine.
Oh my God, I don't know how to, could you take that off, please? Tell me how to,
Oh,
They can hear you.
okay.
Yeah, you're good, Kathy. No worries.
Okay. Oh, geez, that's not stable. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. We just have terrible internet for my computer apparently. So let me see where I'm at here on how Dan's got his Zoom thing arranged. Okay, so did you guys vote to amend Carolyn, vote to approve Carolyn's?
No, we're waiting on you. I believe we are ready for a vote. Did we get a second? Oh, yeah, we did get a second. So I think we are ready to call the vote.
Okay, I'm going to get rid of Dan's computer. Hey, Dan. Here, please. Mine's working again. Okay, sorry about that. Okay.
The sound's working. You're out of focus, but I think you moved the camera.
What's that? Get it working?
For now. Okay, so does anybody have any objections to Carolyn's amendment to the November 3rd minutes? If not, approved. For our November 3rd minutes? If not, are there any objections to Kathleen's draft as amended? Okay, so the November 3rd, 2022 minutes are approved as amended. And we will get those amended, and then Carolyn, you and I can set the time to go to the docket and do our business. Okay, moving on. Why don't we go ahead and have our Anchorage Fire Department representative who has joined us jump in and provide us some information. Jake?
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for hosting tonight and allowing us a few minutes. My name is Jake. I'm with the Anchorage Fire Department at Station 5 in Spenard. And our fire chief is encouraging all of us to get out into our community councils and attend community council meetings and just kind of answer any questions that any of you may have, and also share some news on our front so that you can all be tuned in on what's going on in the world of AFD. A few things on our end. We recently graduated an academy of 21 people that have just now started this week. 18 of those positions were funded through a federal grant that we got. And we're likely to do a second academy in 2023 due to retirements. We've also recently started pushing this app that's available to everybody called Pulse Point, and that's for those that are trained in CPR. You can be notified of emergencies close by to you that you can be the first responder to. For somebody that's in cardiac arrest, if you're nearby, you can respond there and start providing high quality compressions until we arrive. Just to in an effort to increase our cardiac arrest survival rate, which is already one of the best in the nation. So that's something that it's a free app, and I encourage anybody who's willing and able to help to get that. We're also wrapping up the training that we have going this spring for the wildland urban interface fire mitigation program that we've taken on here in the city, to be better prepared to respond to wildland fires in the urban interface setting. And also we have wildfire maps and our strategic plan as well that are available on muni.org/fire, that I encourage everybody to take a look at if you're interested in that. And that's really all that I have to share. Also, we recently had 2 bonds that were up for vote, and both of those passed. So I appreciate all of those voters that came out and showed support for us, because we certainly appreciate that a lot. And that's really all I have in terms of news to share. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you, Jake. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Steve, Steve,
Yes, I have a question. Jake, I'm sorry, I've been maybe out of touch with this, but does AFD still have anything to do with mental health crisis, suicidality, the mobile team?
Yep. So we do have the mobile crisis team. Yep. And that is in service from 10 in the morning till 8 p.m. And they drive around the city responding to, mental health crises and the like. And they also help individuals navigate getting treatment and help for themselves and things like that. And it's been a extremely successful program, and it's been very helpful to all of us. It's been a great benefit to our city for sure.
Is that likely to stay in these hours, or is it working towards a 24-hour program? Or
I believe they are working towards having something 24-hour, but they are the program is still quite new, and so they're still working out all the kinks and getting people trained for it, and also looking. I believe they're looking for people as well that they can bring on that are interested in the position and things like that. But yeah, like I said, it's a work in progress, and it's still gaining traction, and they're making changes and tweaks to it all the time to make it as efficient of a program as possible.
okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Jake? If not, I did want to bring this up under announcements, and so this just can kind of segue in. We did get a follow-up email from our last meeting, our March meeting, when somebody had asked about Ben Schultz's condition. You know, he had fallen at Station 5 and seriously injured, and so I got an email from Thomas Upchurch to just let us know and wanted to be able to provide a little bit more. And so I'll just read a couple, 3 sentences. You know, he did have, he had one broken arm, both ankles, but not his neck. He did have a traumatic brain injury and has a shunt in place. He has full mobility, and he recently got married. And he will always be a part of us here at Station 5. So that's great news. And he just wanted to follow up on somebody who had asked a question at our March meeting. So we really good to hear news like that. So Jake, as always, our council, wishes you and Ben and everybody there at the station, stay well, stay safe, and thank you so much for everything you do for our community.
Great. Well, we really appreciate the support, and we're happy to do it.
Okay, great. Okay, I just had a couple other of announcements. We'll just move into the other announcements. And we received a flyer to publicize Paint the Town. It's a program that NeighborWorks Alaska has been doing since the 80s, where they provide minor repairs and paint homes around the community. And so they're doing it again in June of this year. And I'm sure that, if you want to sponsor a home or you want to nominate a home, they definitely would like some input. And so a lot of you may know Lindsay Duke, who's with Bernard Community Council, but she's also with Neighborhood Works Alaska. So if anybody wants to contact her, her phone number is 907-677-8443, just in case you want to get involved with that. And then also there's a call out for volunteers for Alaska Free Clinic that will be providing free medical and dental services to Alaskans in Anchorage on April 15th and 16th. So they could really use some volunteers to set up and do non-medical support things. And they'll have about 20 doctors, dentists, optometrists, and nurse lined up. They need some more. So if you're in the medical field and want to volunteer, again, this is Anchorage Free Clinic, and it's sponsored by the Remote Area Medical Volunteer Corps. And that's going to be held at O'Malley Sports Center, April 15th and 16th. So you can call 865-579-1530 if you are interested or able to help out with that event, or you just can get the word out for anybody who may need those kinds of services. So those are all the announcements that I have. Does anybody have any other quick announcements to share?
Kathy, just a quick thing, since this is a volunteer type thing. And I know the Alaska Career College is kind of outside the community council's area, but they do have all the students that are working towards their medical assistant degrees and stuff. So if they need additional volunteers, if you reach out to them, they can provide people for additional credits and stuff for their programs to help out if it seems like they need some more additional help or something in the event. I mean, I was teaching there for a while, the HR program, but I do still recommend their students to help where possible.
Okay. It would be surprising if they hadn't reached out to that kind of a group, those kinds of, groups, because that would be a great way for them to provide some assistance at that level. So thank you, Cliff. Okay, anybody else have any announcements? Okay, we will move on then to, we started this last year, a little segment called What's New in Turnagain, and we allow just a few minutes for anybody to provide anything about our neighborhood, what may be happening, and anybody can feel free to jump in. Anybody have anything to share?
Kathy, Jim Nordland here. How are you? Can you guys hear me okay?
Sorry, what was that?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay,
Jim.
great. Well, hi, everybody. Jim Nordland here. I've been living in the Turnagain area for the last 20 years, and before that in Spenard for about 20 years. But I just wanted to share with you that I'm running for the Chugach Board again this year. I was a member of the Chugach Board for 9 consecutive years back in the from 2006 to 2012, I believe, and or 2015. I'm running with a team of people, two other folks that are running with me, Suzanne Fleet Green and Shana Kilcone. And Shana is also I believe she's in the Turnagain Community Council area. For those of you who may not know me that well, as I said, I've been living in the neighborhood here for several years, and including representing West Anchorage in the state legislature a long time ago. And there's been so many redistrictings over that period of time, but I think it's fair to say there are certain precincts that I used to represent in the legislature before that. Just coming through some, election fatigue, I think, with the mayoral election. I'm sorry, the assembly election, but there is another one coming up, and it's the Chugach election. The ballots go out on April 19, and then you'll have, it's all electronic balloting, and you have the opportunity to vote until May 19, and that's when the annual meeting for Chugach is held, and the announcement will be made. There are 3 seats up this year, and to be a voter, your name has to be the person on the bill, the Chugach bill. That is the person who is the official voter in your household. So I encourage you to make sure to look for that ballot, to spread the word. I think we've got a good team running. One of the reasons I got into the race is concern again about a lack of natural gas in Cook Inlet. The DNR has said that we only have enough gas to really match our current load for about the next 4 years. So we really have to get on this. I think that a more aggressive look at renewables is one of the ways to do that. So that's the primary reason that I'm running. Just an aside, I'm really glad to hear the announcement about Paint the Town. I was the executive director at NeighborWorks Alaska up until I resigned last June. And Lindsay Hyduk is running the show there on the Paint the Town, and Anna Rowley, who just got elected to the assembly, was on our board. So I'm really happy to see NeighborWorks doing well, plugging away and doing that good program that started 40 years ago. I think Paint the Town was started about 40 years ago. So in any case, I appreciate you folks looking out for your ballot for the Chugach election and making sure that your member of your household who is the member votes. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Jim or the Chugach Board elections coming up? If not, okay, thank you, Jim. Does anybody else want to share anything about what's new in Turnagain? Okay, then we will move on to executive board report. So this is kind of sounding like a broken record, but we always want to stress that we have 2 positions open for our 2023 term, and that is president and secretary. And again, thank you to Kathleen for doing a great job when she served as our secretary last year, and maybe the year before, I don't remember. But we could really use somebody to step in that role as well as president. And so if we get any interest in either one of those, then we can have a special election at our next meeting to consider those nominees. So, think about it. Just think about it. Okay, then just want to say that the board met last week, and we had set, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Anyway, April 19th, for our next board meeting from 4 to 5:30. It is the same day of the FCC delegate meeting, which starts at 6. And I didn't think about that when we met as a board. So we may want to change that, but Carolyn is our delegate, so she can decide if she wants to, we'll just let everybody know if we change that date. But that's what we've and we've met via Zoom, and probably will continue to meet via Zoom to make it easier for Stephanie if she's got baby duty. And so we'll just see what we can do on that. Okay, let's see. So Carolyn, I'll hand it over to you to provide a treasurer's report. Our bylaws do require us to give quarterly reports. And so now is a good time for Carolyn to step up as treasurer and provide information for us.
Great, thanks, Kathy. So from what Kathy mentioned earlier, now that we have the November meeting minutes approved, we can move forward with getting myself and Kathy access to the bank account. The account statement that I have in front of me, and Kathy, I don't remember how this came to pass, but I think we get emailed statements from Northern Bank. Is that correct? And that's how we have this statement in front of us?
No, we actually get them mailed. And so our mailing address is the Federation of Community Councils office there on West Fairweed Lane. So they arrive at their office and we have to go pick them up.
Thank you for that clarification. So looking at the statement, looking at the digital version of the paper statement that I have in front of me, our checking account reads as the balance being $280.05, and the savings account is $1,615.54. And I believe for the purposes of this report, that is the end of my report.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. We've never been a community council with large funds. Some councils actually apply for grants and have money from various reasons and sources over time, but we've been pretty much, all volunteer, no cash. And but it's nice to have a little bit of money in an account in case the need arises for us to go out for pizza. No, I didn't say that. Okay, so next under board report is Federation of Community Councils delegate report, and that is Carolyn as well. So Carolyn, if you would like to provide that.
Sure. So we met on March 15th via Zoom. We had a number of presentations, the first being which Kathy already mentioned for the executive board report, which is the Alaska Free Clinics. We received a presentation about ways to support them through volunteerism. I won't spend any more time on that since it's already been covered. We also received some information about the 15 propositions that are on the ballots that we all participated in, hopefully, for the election this week. I don't really see a need to get into that in depth since the election is ultimately kind of over. We received a number of governmental updates. The mayor's office presented. It was Trista Espy, hopefully I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She mentioned that we should have new representation from the mayor's office at all community council meetings. So I don't know if there's anybody from the mayor's office on here now, but hopefully we'll be receiving some regular updates from them starting tonight or in the very near future. We should also receive a community council survey later in March. I don't remember exactly what that survey is about, and my notes are lacking at the moment. I apologize. We also were told from the mayor's office that maintenance and operations is starting to work on potholes, and so if there's potholes that you want to report, you can. Pulse Point app, which Jake with AFD mentioned, was also covered. The community grant applications are now open, and the awards are going to focus on economic, social, and community development. There's Parks and Rec is hiring. They're having a job fair and hiring for seasonal workers at the moment. See, and then moving on to the Anchorage Assembly, Christopher Constant gave a report. also mentioned Pulse Point and the election. He said that highlights for that particular Tuesday's assembly meeting was talking about Title 21 changes, in particular having to do with downtown. He also mentioned that Indigenous Peoples' Day and Juneteenth are being added to the MOA holiday calendar, and the integration of the new launch of an online checkbook that will allow everybody to see what money and contracts are being distributed through the public process. I'm sure Austin will probably cover that stuff too in her report. We received a school board report. I believe it was Pat Higgins who was stepping in for that. And Pat, I think you're on this call, so I'm sure we'll hear more from you, so I won't dwell on that. We did not receive a report from the Alaska Governor's Office. Then we got into the standing committee reports, and we received a report from the chair, Gretchen Stoddard, about Mark Butler, who's the FCC manager, in response to an article that was published by the Alaska Landmine, just kind of giving us an update about where the FCC board stood with the reports about Mark participating in the process for having to do with Holton Hills and Girdwood. And so there was some lively discussion, and some folks gave their impressions in favor and support or not supporting Mark and his actions. We're supposed to be hearing more from the FCC board as far as any kind of statement or position that they take regarding Mark's actions having to do with Holton Hill. I did speak, and my comments were pretty much centered on basically saying that if what's written in the article is true, that I wasn't happy about it. I found it quite regrettable and disappointing. And hopefully that this is an opportunity and a reminder for us to kind of learn from this situation and how to move forward, how to best move forward with our conduct with these public processes. And then I think it's fair for FCC. It's important for the FCC to be fair and nonpartisan. And the contributors to the article from the Alaska Landmine were at the meeting, and they declined to comment. They were there to observe. And there was also a representative from the ADN who was online to report about it too. And I'm sure everybody probably saw it, the reporting online. Moving into old business, the Community Council boundary review is still going on, and we should be reached out to from the Muni if there are any areas that are going to be specifically looked at for further study based on the public comments. So if there's anything that's going to affect TCC and our boundaries, we should expect to hear from the Muni about it. They really stressed that it's a collaborative process. It's not a top-down process. So we have a significant voice and say as far as when it comes to the boundary review, if there's any suggestions for any modifications to TCC as it exists right now with the boundaries. And then we also had a discussion about having hybrid meetings in the future or in-person meetings. And it was determined that the FCC is going to buy an OWL video thing that will offer us the opportunity to, it sounds like it'll be pretty easy, have a hybrid meeting option so that we can attend in person or virtually. And those meetings, those hybrid meetings are supposed to start in April. So more to come on that. Hopefully they'll be hybrid and without a hitch. And I think that is it. Kathy, I know that you were present for the meeting as well. I don't know if there's anything that you'd like to add, but that is the end of my report.
No, that's very thorough. And we will be discussing the CC boundary process that's going on here a little bit later in more detail on our agenda. So thank you very much, Carolyn, for that good report. Let's see now, what do we have next? Oh, speaking of that, that whole boundary thing. Let me get my file here. We did receive some correspondence and it was sent out with the meeting notice from the municipality with regard to the 10-year Muni review of community council boundaries. a committee comprised of community council representation. Turnigan does not have any representation on that, but it's broadly represented. So one of the steps that they did was a public questionnaire that they just sent out to anybody, and anybody could provide comments about potential boundary change suggestions, and that's all it is. So there was a white paper sent out where they put together and summarized all of the suggestions and proposals for different council boundary amending council boundaries. And that that doesn't mean these will get approved. It doesn't mean anything at this point. Then the next step is they'll do a boundary study area for further evaluation. And then they'll do another white paper. And then the committee, the Boundary Advisory Committee, will make their recommendations, and then it goes through the process, and ultimately the assembly would have to approve any community council boundaries. And I see your hand is raised, Merle. I'm going to go ahead and finish what I've got to say, and then I certainly will call on you. Within this white paper, someone or ones submitted 3 recommendations I just wanted to bring to your attention that would alter Turnigan Community Council boundaries. All they are is, again, anybody from the public could say, hey, I think this should happen. So I'll just read them really quickly. One is to have that they said that the Turnigan Community Council is too small and recommended that we merge with Spenard Community Council. Another comment was they would like to see the neighborhood south of West Northern Lights between Fish Creek and Wisconsin Street from Turnigan Community Council to Spenard Community Council. And then the third one was to transfer Spenard Beach Park from Turnigan Community Council to Spenard Community Council. And I won't take the time to address those, but there certainly is some history that some of you may or may not remember. 10 years ago, our council boundaries were amended, and that's how we got Spenard Beach Park, because they created a community council called Midtown. There wasn't one before then, and it got some of Spenard's area. So then to make that up to Spenard, Spenard got some of our eastern boundary area. And then to make that up to Turnigan, they gave us Spenard Beach Park, which was in Spenard. And so there's reasons, why we have the boundaries that we have based on actions that took place 10 years ago. And right now, we won't take the time to really discuss these in any detail, but if you have any thoughts on those, be sure to share them with the board, and we'll probably get more serious in May about, if we want to take any kind of position on those recommendations or those suggestions from 3 members of the public. So Merle, you have your hand raised. So yes. Merle, you're muted. So if you're talking, can you unmute, please? Merle, are you there? You are on mute, so if you can unmute if you'd like to speak, either that or lower your hand, please. Does anybody else have any questions or quick comments on this 10-year boundary?
Hey, Kathy, I know it might be presumptuous, but I think that the TCC should look at taking all 4 corners of the Northern Lights in Minnesota, rather than it being split up between different community councils. If we can look at that and share that with the other community council, and just let it be as one, instead of one corner being one and the other 3 corners being another, just make it all one.
Okay, that's an interesting, of course, the problem with that is then where do you stop drawing the boundary change, and roads, of course, roads and creeks are kind of natural boundaries. And that's why a big section of our eastern boundary is Fish Creek. That's 10 years ago when we lost some of our boundary east of Fish Creek. And then they just from south of Northern Lights on, they switched that and gave Spenard some of that land. And so Fish Creek became our new boundary until you get down to 40-something street, 42nd Street or so. So interesting idea though. I can see from, especially like a business standpoint, that would make more sense.
And I agree from a business, because there's the businesses that are on all four corners should be under one community council rather than multiple.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Stephanie?
Yeah, Kathy, thanks. Before we get any more comments, and maybe that was the only one, but I just wanted to say that this isn't an action item for us at this time. And so let's hold off any further discussion until we are taking this up as a council. It's just supposed to be a report out on kind of where they're at in the process and inform people of how they can get involved. So let's just looking at the time and what we have left on the agenda, if we can kind of keep moving along, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Good comment. Moving on. The last item under executive board report is an update on the Heritage Land Bank 2023 work plan and 5-year management plan. And I did attend via Zoom the last HLB advisory commission meeting on what day was that? March 23rd. And it was a very interesting discussion. Most of the advisory commission members are fairly new, and so they're not very familiar with process on HLB property. Of course, they talked about, what happened with the assembly decision regarding Holton Hills and Girdwood that was mentioned previously. And then they spent a fair amount of time on a work session with regard to these two plans. Really, it's one plan, but they divided up into 1 year and 5-year. And Turnagain Community Council has followed this process, these updates every year very, very closely. We always submit comments because we do have really important HLB parcels west of the airport where the coastal trail runs through and has, some open space and wildlife habitat areas along the coastal area. And so they had some suggestions with regard to some of the parcels, none on TCC, anything within our TCC boundaries. But they did indicate that they were proposing some policy changes. And I'm the one that's really followed this heavily for the council for a long time. And the policies that are in place in code or in their plan are policies that have been around for a long time, and they seem to be serve the overall conduct of the HLB staff and commissioners well. Overall, there's been very few amendments. They're proposing some pretty major amendments on the policies. So I think when this comes out for a public hearing draft or a public comment draft, then we'll want to take a really close look and see what changes they're proposing. The other thing, very briefly, that I noticed was they had a few more things that they were recommending the staff to change in the plan that was their working plan. It's not a public draft yet. And then they said, so do we need to go ahead and have this on our agenda next month after we see what you've done, taking their comments into consideration? And the staff said, no, you don't really need to do that. And the commission says, okay, well then go ahead and, that it's off our plate now. That is absolutely not how you do that. The HLB Advisory Commission always passes a formal resolution that then gets passed to the assembly after, after the document has been out for a 45-day comment period. So how the commission is being run and just the internal workings of HLB department is a concern to me because there's just not a lot of experience there, and they've got staff openings. So I'm hoping that, that will improve and we can certainly will take advantage of the public comment period when that time comes. So does anybody have any quick questions on that?
I have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead, Merle.
I want to go back to the report that the lady gave on the Federation Community Councils.
What? Whoa, we're kind of past that one. I've been calling on you. I see your hand raised.
Let me say to you this, my hand was raised. I do not know how to necessarily work all this under Zoom, but if we were in the open meetings, which we should be, then when you would I would have had no problem being recognized. But if you don't want to recognize me and hear what I have to say, I will get off and quit this thing, right?
Merle, I honestly don't know what the technical issues on your end. I certainly had some at the beginning of this meeting, but I did call on you several times. I asked you to unmute because you were muted if you were speaking. I got no
didn't know how
response.
to
I had
unmute.
to move on.
I didn't know how to unmute.
Okay, well, we can address that not during meeting time on that issue for you, Merle. So I'm sorry, but I don't know what else to say. So that's unfortunate, but we need to move on. And
So I'm not going to be able to ask the question of whoever that lady was that's given that report. Is that correct?
with regard to the Federation of Community, well, Carolyn Hall is our Turnigan delegate this
Well, I need
year.
to talk with her. I need
at
to
those
speak with
meetings.
her. Can we address a question to her?
One quick question, and then
Well,
we need to move
why
on.
would I be limited? You blather on here for how long? All right. Well, my question to her is, did the Federation of Community Councils, if they're going to go to these Zoom meetings and approve them, are they going to amend their bylaws? And that also goes to, is the Community Council, Turning Community Council, going to amend its bylaws so that we know how to participate here? And that's my question. So would this Carolyn lady explain that to what I was the one of the community Federation meetings, and Mark gave a talk there, and it was my understanding they were going to go ahead with that. I know that this Carolyn lady was there, but left the meeting before that discussion took place. And that wasn't this meeting. That was, I guess it was already a month away of meeting. So could she tell us what they're going to do, please?
Carolyn, do you want to
Yeah,
briefly address Merle's question?
of course. Yes. Hi, Merle. I got a little confused at the end of your question, but my understanding is that, well, my recollection is that there was no discussion about amending the FCC's bylaws. And I don't believe we have to. I would think that it would have gotten brought up. And when it comes to shifting the format that our meetings are taking place, and I believe in the TCC bylaws, from what I remember, there is no need for us to amend our bylaws based on the medium in which we are meeting. Kathy, you're more familiar with the bylaws than I am, but I'm pretty sure we're not in violation of our bylaws. It doesn't address anything as far as virtual or in person or anything like that. That's, I think, all that I have, and hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. And that's right. We did double check that when you had brought that up at a previous meeting, Merle. There is there's nothing in our bylaws that say we have to meet in person. Of course, when those bylaws were last amended in 2014, there was no such thing as Zoom meetings yet, but it doesn't say we have to meet in person because that wasn't even a thing back then to even verbalize that or put it in writing about meeting in person versus meeting virtually. So we are not in violation of our bylaws at the FCC level. I think they have discussed that. And councils that are still doing meetings virtually or hybrid are fine. There's no violation of any kind of bylaws. And, COVID is a thing, and we are what we are, and we're doing what we're doing. We're doing as best as we can. And I think that topic is pretty well moot for this meeting anyway. We are meeting virtually and we are not violating any of our bylaws.
You're not,
So-
you're not violating them. It's just not provided in the bylaws. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, that's a different, than what you had said earlier, but thank you, Merle. I appreciate your input. So now we'll go to our regular reports, and we did have Senator Matt Clayman give his legislative report earlier in the meeting. Do we have any other legislators who are joining us that can provide a report? I'm not seeing anybody. So last chance, anybody appear for a legislative? Okay, so no other legislative reports. Then we'll move on to our assembly report, and there's Austin Quinn Davidson, who is our assembly member until, I don't know, when do the new elected people get sworn in, Austin?
At the meeting of the 25th. So I
Okay.
have the 11th left, which I thought was my last full meeting. And then, of course, in classic assembly fashion, we scheduled a special meeting for April 18th. So I have 2 full meetings and then a bit of the 25th. But
Okay,
yeah,
well,
this is my
before you
last-
jump in on your report, we want to thank you so much for serving our community with just intellect and reasoning and just all sorts of adjectives that I should continue to be thinking of. So thank you so much. I remember when I first met you and Stephanie we were at the Spenard Farmers Market, and we ended up going out for lunch, and it was a wonderful experience to meet you guys and really get to know you. And so thank you for your service as assembly member. I know it hasn't been easy.
Thanks, Kathy. That's really, really sweet of you. I really appreciate you saying that. It's been a wild ride. It's I've been reflecting a lot about the time, because as you approach the end of something, right, you think a lot about it. And to go from a special election, which is the first vote by mail special election we had. And then immediately after that, we had the earthquake, which Sand Lake was hit really hard. So we were really involved in managing the earthquake and some of the things that came after. And then my second election was during COVID. And then, of course, the acting mayor bit. And then sort of all of the craziness that's happened in the last year and a half. So it's been a busy time, but I've learned a lot, and I've met a lot of wonderful people, many of you included. And it's taught me a lot about our city and about all of the things that we love here. And I'm just really thankful to all of you who volunteer and come and do this work. And it's a lot. So thanks to you, Kathy, and to all the other board members and volunteers, and Lauren, who's on a commission. Like, there are just so many of you doing things in the community, and it takes all of us. So anyway, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so earlier someone from AFD gave an update about the mobile crisis team, and maybe it was you, Steve, that asked if they're going 24/7. So we actually, this is a program that's been really important to the Assembly. It's really been led by Meg Zalatel, who has a personal and professional interest in mental and behavioral health services. But Forrest and Dunbar and she and I have been sort of the team, the trio that's been leading this work. And we built out, with the alcohol tax coming, we then were able to fund the work because we had to find funding for it, which was great. So thank you all who supported the alcohol tax and who continue to have cocktails here and there. You're paying for this good work. And we built it out. We kind of put the infrastructure together with the program with the prior fire chief, Jody Hetrick, while I was acting mayor. And then right around the time that Mayor Bronson started, the program got up and running. We had spent some time building it. And at first it was just, 8 to 5, 9 to 5, something like that. But we know, of course, that behavioral health crises don't just happen from 8 to 5. And so we wanted to turn it to 24/7. The other benefit to 24/7 is that once you do that, you kick in eligibility with Medicaid to get reimbursement. So actually we are allowed to provide the services. You can get reimbursement for a percentage, and maybe it's 25%, I can't remember, but for all of the amount you're using for the program. So it would have a big benefit to the city to move to 24/7. So the assembly found money in alcohol tax, again, to bring us up to 24/7 last July, as of July 1. We've had a series of frustrating conversations and inaction by the administration, who has not supported this program and really believes should be a police response instead when someone's having a mental or behavioral health challenge. The problem is that is not consistent with what all the experts say, and it puts people on the defense and makes them less likely to call. We do have a really good MIT program, which is a small little program within APD that does this work. So we want to keep that program and even build it up a little, but we also need folks who are not armed and uniformed police officers. It's just been shown that that's not the best responder. And the great thing about having it in AFD is then folks in APD can actually focus on crime and police work, so a lot of them, APD really likes the program too, because, they find that when they show up at a behavioral health incident, they're not quite, what are they supposed to do, right? I mean, they're supposed to arrest someone and put them in a car and where do you take them? I mean, they're not committing a crime. What do you do? So anyway, we continue to work on trying to bring us to 24/7. Yesterday, Dan Volan, Meg, and I met with the police chief, the fire chief, the muni manager, the acting muni attorney, and several other folks, the MIT program person, her name is Ruth, she's in charge of the MIT program, all of those folks to say, how can we keep building this program and making it effective in the community? Anyway, that's long-winded, but it's a really, really important program that I'm super proud to have been a part of. And I just wanted to follow up that, yes, there is money to make it 24/7, and we will get money back if we make it 24/7 from Medicaid, but we just need the implementation, and it's been tricky.
Thank you, Austin. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'd sure like to be helpful in any way I can to keep that going, since I used to do that kind of work for about 20 years. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. I didn't realize that. Yeah. I mean, I think asking AFD about it, you saw that the guy speaking this evening really spoke highly of the program. Both AFD and APD tend to really like the program because it actually has folks who are interested in behavioral mental health work responding to those calls, and they pair them with a counselor as well. So it's a paramedic and a mental health counselor that go and respond to these calls. So I think AFD feels good because they're working in collaboration with someone who's trained to respond to that, but they're also there if there's a medical issue, because sometimes there are medical issues, that come along with it. But then APD likes it because they're not as forced to respond to those types of calls at a cost of not being able to respond to other calls. So anyway, I think continuing to bring it up and showing support is great. And I appreciate you doing that because it gave me a chance to talk about it. Just a couple things. Let's see. I saw later on your agenda, Kathy, or everyone, is a linear naming panel. That reminded me to bring up that Cameron Presverdia, the other West Side rep, Dan Voland, who's from downtown, and I all are bringing forward an ordinance that would change the way we do naming panels. So Kathy, you'd probably be interested in this. And certainly there could be amendments as we go, but our idea was to take, instead of right now how we do it, typically someone dies, and then when someone dies, their family and friends get together and say, hey, we want to name something after, John Smith. And then we form a naming panel whose job is to find something to name after John Smith. So you start with sort of a foregone conclusion of a person that you want to name something after. And I think what's happened is that we have a lot of things in our community named after people, some of whom people don't know who it is, or maybe anyway, I think what we're doing is we're not necessarily following the code now, which says that we should focus on Indigenous place names as well, because no one says, hey, I really want to name this creek this Indigenous place name, because there isn't the same sort of family or, other motivation to do that. I don't think it should just be Indigenous names, and I don't think it should just be people's names. I think what would be wonderful, and this is what we've proposed in the ordinance, is to have a more permanent panel. So it would be a commission that the mayor would appoint, just like, I think, Lauren, you're still on the elections commission. So similar commission like that, the mayor would put forward members, and then the assembly would appoint, and that commission would sit permanently, just like all the other commissions, and they would design a vision for how they want to name things in the municipality. Maybe after natural features, maybe after geographical things, historical things, some names, maybe some Indigenous place names. What are things that we love about our community? Are we the city of lights? What is our identity as Anchorage residents? And how do we put together a naming structure that envision that then when we have individual things that we want to name, we can pull from that vision rather than just sort of these one-offs that we name after people that aren't necessarily even connected to the thing we name after them. So anyway, that's the concept. We're super open to change, small changes, but that's going to be introduced on Tuesday. And then a couple other things, Chris Constant and I for several, go ahead, Kathy.
Well, I sorry to interrupt you. So we just had our first citizen naming panel this evening. We're going to meet again in 3 weeks, and we have homework between now and then. If this is introduced this coming Tuesday and then it's approved in a couple of weeks, will that interrupt the process that we've started with Glenary Park and what we're doing now? Would we have to just take a big step back and wait until a permanent naming panel is?
I don't think so. We haven't discussed that aspect, and usually ordinances are effective immediately unless otherwise noted. So I think it would be effective immediately, but my guess is that if we already had panels going, those would finish out their work, and then we would create this commission, because we don't have we don't have folks on the commission yet. It doesn't exist yet. So it would take a little while to ramp up. So that's a good question. If it passes, well, let me think about it, and I'll mention it to our team who's talking about this and maybe in the work session. But I don't think that doesn't seem like a reasonable interpretation to me that it would cut off the existing panels, because those are doing good work too. They're just so focused on sort of piecemealing all of the pieces of our city that could be coming more together, I think, in a bigger vision.
Okay, thank you, Austin.
You're welcome. Sorry. Chris Constant and I have been, go ahead, Lauren.
As you were reporting, I was just thinking, and you don't have to answer right now, but it's just a thought you can consider. Instead of starting a new commission, how about adding that to the Anchorage Historical Preservation Commission? Now, I happen to sit on that. I'm not looking, it's something that has a little bit different charge, but it seems to me that there could be enough overlap that if we add that to its charge, and maybe gave it time to, as we pick up new members, that might, and then also do what, Kathy asked the question about other panels. I think it makes sense to have other feeder panels essentially feeding into something like that. And I don't want to belabor it, but just as you were talking, I was just thinking that might make some sense. But anyway, I'll just suggest it.
No, that's a great idea. And actually, Daryl Hess has been working on it with us, and he's really familiar with the commissions and the historical commission specifically and what they do. So he actually suggested that we insert in the, I'm trying to remember, it's been a while since I reviewed it now, but that I think we go to the historical commission and present, maybe the new commission presents their plan. And so that's one piece. And I don't remember if they have to approve it or if it's just to get feedback, or maybe it's that we don't make any naming recommendations, or the commission wouldn't, that are inconsistent with what the historical commission says. So I'll have to look at it, or if you want to take a look at the language and see what you think. And then another piece is it lays out in the code who the members of the commission would be. And one of them would be someone who has a historical background or archaeological background. I can't remember the exact words, but so the intent was to pull in someone who brings that value. And then also to collaborate with the historical commission. But I mean, it's a decent idea. It's like, why maybe we have them do that. Of course, then they're going to be more focused probably on the historical elements than maybe the more current vision for the city.
Right. That may be a better approach. I was just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
And maybe just the whole thought about getting a little bit of that input, like from somebody. It could be somebody on the commission now, or it could be somebody like Joe Antonson, who has an incredible background with history and place names. And
yeah,
okay,
that would be great. And if you have time, Lauren or anyone else is interested, take a look at the language. It will be on the agenda for the 11th. It should be under the 10 Gs, which is where we introduce items. And let me know if you have specific amendments you'd want to bring, because that's an option as well. And we'll probably hear it on the 18th. My guess is that there will be community feedback, and it will go on beyond my time on the assembly. It will take a little while. We'll have a few work sessions. So you could work with Cameron, or, if you're not hearing back from Cameron, you could work with Dan Volan too. He's super responsive, and he and I have been really involved in it. So I was going to mention that, and thank you guys for those ideas, that Chris Constant and I have been the reps for National League of Cities for a couple of years, which one of the things we get to do is travel to Washington, D.C. and meet with our delegation and advocate on behalf of Anchorage. And so I just wanted to let you know that we went a couple weeks ago and were able to meet with Senator Murkowski and with Senator Sullivan. Senator Sullivan is going to help us with a HUD formula that has us receiving less money than some other similarly sized in homeless population cities. So he's going to help us with that and has connected us with HUD, so that we're really grateful for that. And then we had a great conversation with Senator Murkowski. We showed her, we talked to her about the ARPA dollars and what a difference they made in our community and all the programs we were able to do, and made me realize that I should refer you guys to, we have this great ARPA booklet that goes through a lot of the programs that we funded, and at muni.org/recovery, you can find this and a bunch of other information about how we spent the ARPA money, food programs we did, housing, rental assistance, there's so many infrastructure improvements. We funded organizations like Cultural Pillars, the PAC, the zoo, to keep them operating. Anyway, it's a great resource, so feel free to check that out. And one thing that I've been really passionate about is childcare, and that's been the case even before we had a kid. But hearing from a lot of constituents about how hard it's been to find childcare over the years, and it became a real issue during the pandemic, of course. So anyway, there's been a sort of statewide conversation and national about how does the federal government, in addition to local and state entities, invest in and engage in childcare. And the thing is, it's good for kids, but it's also really good for businesses, because the workforce really depends on people having childcare. And so if parents don't have childcare, one parent's going to end up staying home, which of course is fine if that's what they choose. But for some people, they both want to work, but they can't. And so we see a loss in really income potential from businesses who just can't get their enough employees to do the work. So had a great conversation with Senator Murkowski about that. And other than that, there's a few other things I can mention, but I think I've been gone for a while, and Stephanie's leaving for a meeting, and I'm going to be on baby duty. So I think I'll end there. If unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, maybe one quick question from somebody, and then we'll move on. Anybody have any questions for Austin? Okay, well, thank you again, Austin, for all of your hard work. And we know we won't see the last of you, because I'm sure you will be engaged in a million other things that will improve.
Yeah, I'll
our
get to
community.
attend my first 2023 member community council meeting soon. So anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have anybody from the mayor's office to provide a report from? Don't believe we do this time. So we'll move on to school board. I know Pat Higgins is with us, so thank you, Pat. You've got the floor.
Good evening. First of all, I'm glad to announce, of course, that the bond went through for the schools. All that money is dedicated towards maintenance of the facilities, new roofs, security issues, things of that nature. We have about 800 million in deferred maintenance of that nature. Businesses put aside so much per year, and they invest in things that are that you can expend out over a period of time, like a new roof. This is different than just routine maintenance. That's something the school district pays for on a regular basis and every year. But these are things that are major expenses and are typically expensed out. They used to do this with hospitals, and so I'm kind of familiar with it a little bit. And we're so far behind, we're only focused on that right now. The board had announced when it did this that we were focused on this, and we were going to come up with a new 6-year plan that's really focused on keeping up the schools that we currently have. So we're real pleased with that. The 2 incumbent school board members won re-election. What happens now is that the board will meet, they will elect new officers and reassign school board members to different community councils. So this will probably be the last time I will be the representative here. Where people will go and who they will move around to will be decided as a group. So that's what we're doing right now, and we're going forward with that. A number of things that we've been working on. One of those is school start times. That's kind of a big issue. The focus on that with schools was about the school board is because of academic outcomes. The studies show, we had a good presentation, but we knew this already, that high school students starting later in the day do much better. It has less impact on the kids that are younger. And so looking at reversing the time frames, probably elementary probably being first, and then middle school, and then going forward. So that's an issue, had community meetings and very strong support for that. I think one particular business person came in, I remember at East High School, and said, this is a no-brainer. We're having trouble keeping people 18 to 34. You really need to have the school's academics go up. This makes a difference. Just do it. So it was a kind of an interesting response. We also talked about Monday, starting a half hour late, that we could put it into a committed time frame in there for interactions and training and support for teachers. That's a major factor, again, in improving academic outcomes, which is a big focus of the schools right now. So we've got those going forward. Probably the hot issue that we had was the family school partnership. The board did vote to remove the charter from that, and they did so because of concerns, and the superintendent put it very strongly. You have to comply with state and state regulations, municipal regulations, and the school board policies. The testimony was really interesting. A lot of that testimony was, we want to be separate. We don't want to be part of the school district. Charter schools are the part of the school district. They're separated out for curriculum, and they have to follow policies. We have to comply with the state regulations and constitutions. They are not private schools that can actually operate and purchase and commit with religious instructions or with other private schools for instructions. And there were all kinds of restrictions out there. We tried to work with them. We sent letters. We gave an opportunity. We wanted them to really tell us, these are the issues, this is what we're going to do, and come out with it. It was more or less it was more focused, as some of the members voiced concerns, and APC members as well, and former ones, is that they were, it's basically considering themselves an equal to the board and equal to this. They're a private school, and that simply isn't the case. So the commitment there is to maintain the success of what has gone on with the family school partnership. The academic results there was analyzed. That was kind of interesting. So few kids actually are tested that it's difficult to tell the academic outcomes. That was really Kelly Lessons did a very thorough review of that and presentation during the board. But I still believe it's something. I like the fact that we're responding to what parents want. And we want to commit to keeping what's been operating with that, and we'll continue to do that, but it has to be in full compliance. So for the time being, at this point, in a month, 40 days, the board will have approved for the administration to assume this responsibility, and we're committed to maintaining the same type of school that the Family School Partnership has been operating. We want that flexibility. We want to meet what the parents have been getting from the charter school, but we have to comply with the regulatory requirements that have not been met, and that put us in a very awkward position, and not something that the board really wanted to do. We were looking for the alternatives, but we didn't get it, so we took that position. The first thing we have to do is compliance. We don't have a choice about that. Safety is number two, and everything else has got to be focused on the welfare, on the best things for the kids, and that's where we're at. So those are big issues. Just from a financial standpoint, we're still waiting for the state, obviously, to come through, but they did receive an updated report on Picus Odom. Picus Odom is a study group that has provided information to courts in the lower 48, and it analyzes what is adequate funding, and it's heavily based upon classroom sizes. They do look at the administrative cost as well, and we knew that we were way under. 36 states have maximum effective classroom sizes. K through 3, kindergarten through 3rd grade is 1 to 15. After that is 25. Florida is an exception, is 18 for every grade, so it's still high. We've got 25 to 27. I got one classroom, but then 29 kindergarten and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grades. So the amount of increase that we require for the BSA in order to meet the Picus Odom would be somewhere in the category of, and I want to make sure it's right, about $1,370. That does not account for the fact that our current salaries are not competitive enough, that we're having trouble retaining and getting people. We still have problems even with schools to keep them hot lunches because we can't get staff, and it's a financial issue. We also have the state needs to do the defined benefit retirement to help us recruit and retain people. There seems to be no action. I think that's going to be held up in the House from what I can hear. But that can be done with limited cost. And there are new regulations. I've got an HR background. There are new regulations out there that would not allow us to generate a tremendous debt like it was in the 90s with defined benefit. That's protected under new laws. So we're waiting for the reaction from the state. We did include a increase of 1 PTR, a pupil teacher ratio, 1 per class, which is going in the opposite direction. And the board didn't want to do that, but we had to have a balanced budget. If we get money from the state, and we hope to get something, it's probably going to be less than what we need, obviously, from what we've seen, but I suspect offhand, lowering classroom sizes is going to be a high priority from the board, since that's the last thing we approved. The last thing I'll mention is 6th grade moving into middle school. That was something approved by the board at the request of the administration. I had mixed views about that. It's definitely beneficial to high performing kids. They have more options to do other programs, and it really does it. For low performing kids, it's more of a challenge, and the academic outcomes are not good. So we're going to have to, is this something over a 2-year period of time? And the focus to the board from me and some others, they're going to have to be able to make sure that we're not losing the kids that move forward with this group into this class, into the 6th grade, who just may not be as prepared. They're going to need more support. And that's a concern to me. Academic outcomes, we've got to focus on kids. And that's what we're trying to do. And so we've got a lot of stuff going on. We got a lot more stuff on the plate coming up, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Does anybody have any quick question, Lauren?
Yes, Pat, thank you for the report, even though I'm disappointed with your vote on the Family Partnership Charter School. I probably should have contacted you directly before the vote rather than tell you that afterward, but I think my daughter-in-law probably did a very capable job of testifying, and if you recognize her last name, then you'll understand why I feel the way I do. Just a little bit of history. When I was in the Senate, I spent hours over probably a month working on charter school legislation to do exactly what we're trying to do with so many charters. And we've had some very successful charter schools, including this one. And so I'm passionate about it. And I have 4 grandchildren in that charter school. They are concerned about what might happen with the Anchorage School District. And I can tell you that their parents, one is our son and then his wife, are not, as you described, the ones that are trying to take it over and set policy that's contrary to state law and do that. That if you're hearing that story, that is really from just a few parents. It's not really the feeling of the mass, but there are about 1,700 students performing well. And I just was over at the school about 2 weeks ago. I was asked to come in to speak on some elements of public service, and I was happy to do it. The children were wonderful, very bright, very respectful. And I believe that what the school district did, what the school board did was wrong, but I'm hoping that in this interim time of essentially taking over the management, that will allow the school to function and continue to excel. And I really hope so. And, while I think this was a wrong move, I still want it to succeed. So anyway, I just wanted to express that. And anyway, thanks for your service, even when I may disagree with what you do.
Lauren, I appreciate those comments. And let me add a couple of things. When I first got on school board, I was on from 2008 to 2017 and got on 2 years ago. When I got on, the administration's view was, well, they want to be a charter school, they're on their own. And that always bothered me because charter schools were not in safe buildings. That's a big concern I've got. If we have an earthquake and you're in a strip mall with kids, it bothers me a lot. I want kids to be safe. There was other issues out there, and the board just kind of washed its hands, and some of the finances were issues to me. And at this point, the last school board meeting was interesting. We got a report from the native charter school. And what we got was this is the first time we had a great conversation. We're not sure what they're going to do, but they're listening, they're engaged, and they're trying to help us with, facilities and other things. I've been getting that report from others as well. I think you've got strong commitment on the board to make things happen. What I also heard the superintendent say is that there were additional funds they kept kind of not hiding, but setting aside for do different things, 4 million. His commitment is that stays there. We're not making any raise or anything. We're going to maintain the status approach towards this. That's a popular educational approach, and we're not going to move away from that. I know this week, I guess the APC with the Family School Partnership met, and we had a number of the members on their leave, and we had some others come in that are going to work with the administration hard to make this successful. So we don't want to change the school itself fundamentally. We just have to be in compliance. I pushed before I would vote on this thing to give a letter to them with all the details and ask for answers. And I got to tell you, I didn't get the answers I was looking for. I was hoping this would be an opportunity to resolve it. It didn't happen. I think what the board did to be in compliance, it was very little options. But I am totally committed, just like I've heard from the superintendent, and I believe him, that we're going to maintain the type of school that it is today. Even with the administration.
Sorry, Pat, I hate to cut you off, but we do need to move on. We're running
That's-
behind.
That's okay.
So,
The school board has a
thank you so
3-minute
much.
rule and they call it the Pat Higgins rule, so I understand.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you.
As always, and thank you for joining in our Turnigan Community Council meetings. And we'll see which school board we are assigned to next, and best to the new councils that you're going to be covering. So, okay, we need to move on to airport report. And Megan, I see you are on the phone, so if you can be as brief as possible, that would probably be good, especially on these items that you typically cover every month. So so the floor is yours. Megan, if you're ready to report, you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I hit the mute button a second time. Thank you so much. I think the most important thing for the airport to really push out to the community at this point in time is that the parking garage for the south terminal is at half capacity as we are undergoing construction. It will be largely at half capacity until October. When we finish the 3rd and 4th floor for construction, we're going to switch it to the 1st and 2nd floor. So we're really trying to put the word out to anybody and everybody that it's better to be dropped off. If you have to park at the airport, make sure you come with plenty of time and just have a plan to carry your bags if you have to walk, if you're in the overload parking. We know it's inconvenient, but it is necessary to maintain our infrastructure so it can be useful for years to come. Is there any questions? I know that a lot of this stuff is evergreen, but the parking garage really was the most important.
Okay, with regard to items on the handout that was sent out today, so thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions for Megan on any of those topics? And I encourage you to look at the handout and contact Megan if you discover after the meeting that you've got something you want to chat with her about.
Absolutely, I'm always available.
Anybody have? Yeah. Okay, let's see. We'll move on then with regard to other kind
I've
of.
got a question for Megan.
Yes, Dan.
What is happening with the Humpies location in the terminal?
Oh, the one on the sea concourse.
Yes.
So that was put out to bid for a new vendor, and that location has now been acquired by a company that is going to be running the location as 49th State Brewing Company.
Okay, so, all right, the 49th State Brewing Company's.
They're hoping to start operating later this summer.
Okay. Yeah, all right, just wanting to know that's prime real estate and it's too bad.
Yeah, and the whole bid process takes some time, and then once they acquire the bid, then they have to make sure they understand all the rules and then the construction process. But we are looking forward to them operating this summer.
So are they going to apply for a liquor license or a serving license at that location?
I believe they already have acquired it. I honestly do not know the process. I think right now they're just trying to get the construction taken care of and get employees so they can start serving, and it's gonna be a slow build out, but they want to be up and running for the tourist season, and then continue construction and just keep building up as we go forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Megan, I have a question. Do you know, I forgot to ask at Monday night's Lakeshore user group meeting and town hall meeting, see if anybody could have answered my question, but do you know when the first meeting of the airport master plan stakeholder group is? I know I had been told, a little while back, it'll be in May, but has that date been set yet? for
To
the
my
first-
knowledge, no. As soon as it is set, they will look at public noticing that. And when they do the official public notice, I will send out a gov delivery with the same information. And that is probably something that I will also include in the monthly update, so you guys do not miss it. That is very important, and I understand that.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Kat.
Okay, so what, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of move into Megan, if you can just kind of stay on the line, if you don't mind, because
Okay.
we'll segue into a couple of the council old and new business items that are airport related. And you might have some information that might be helpful, especially that Monday meeting.
I
So-
will be honest, I do mostly communications, and when it comes to engineering and construction projects, unless things are set in stone, I'm not given that information. So I'm not the best person to have insight on some of those things, but I'm happy to stay on the line if I can help.
Oh, sure. And that's more of a, you know, trying to make sure that what was we'll summarize just what took place, that, you know, that I'd appreciate help on that. But Jackie Armstrong, if you're still with us, yeah. Who said that?
Are you moving to change the order of the day, or asking somebody to change the order of the day?
No, because I'm going to ask Jackie Armstrong to jump in next under council old and new business.
Okay.
Because it's airport related.
Okay, is it my turn?
Jackie, go ahead and jump in.
Okay, I'm just waiting to find out if it's my turn.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so regarding old business, and back in February, I contacted Bradley Coy, who is the municipal traffic engineer, regarding the heavy truck traffic that's using West Northern Lights Boulevard. I contacted him on my behalf. I did not speak on behalf of the council. And he sent me an email on the 27th of February outlining the process that they intend to follow in response to my request. So I'm just going to read it to you and we can go from there. First point is assemble background documentation. Second, evaluate roadway classification, design, and other factors. Third, collect traffic data, including heavy vehicle activity, video footage to allow for documentation of various heavy vehicle operators. Fourth is compiling the documentation and making their preliminary findings. Fifth is coordinating with stakeholders, in this case, the freight community and the community council. And then the sixth is to finalize the findings. While that's a great process, unfortunately, because they are understaffed and they have other priorities, it's probably not going to begin until summer. And then they want to complete the rest in the fall. I intend to call him at the end of this month to find out where they are and where we are in the queue, and I intend to follow up with him at the end of each subsequent month. This has to do with the semis that are using West Northern Lights to access primarily businesses in the North Air Park, and primarily that would be the post office, UPS, Ace, and Everett's. And the aviation fuel trucks that are for GA planes, and that would be Crowley, Inlet Energy, and Shoreside. So when he gets to step 4, which is compiling the documentation, he has said he will send it to me. I intend, as I said, to call him at the end of the month. And at that time, if there's something new to report, we can deal with that at the next meeting. And Kathy had mentioned the possibility of having him speak at the next meeting if it's appropriate.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Jackie. Yeah, so anybody have any questions? I mean, first of all, Jackie, thank you so much for continuing to dog this. And you've made a lot more headway than our council collectively has, and I take a lot of responsibility for that slow process on our council's part, but you've done an excellent job just making contacts and talking with so many, but especially connecting with Brad Coy, traffic engineer at the Muni. That's a really important step. And let's hope we see some progress. So thank you so much for that.
Well,
Does anybody have any questions?
it won't be for lack of me dogging him.
Well, that's what we're counting on. I know that. Does anybody have any questions for Jackie? You know, this is an important, and as development at North Air Park may continue, and it looks like, you know, it likely will. This issue is going to be more and more pertinent, that needs major addressing. Do you want to mention about the signage that you saw posted, Jackie?
Oh, yes. I had meant to ask if you wanted to put that up for people to view, and I forgot. There is a sign that has recently been put up by the airport. It is on the east side of Postmark, directly across from the FedEx hangar and about midpoint to the hangar. And to me, it's very confusing / ambiguous, but it says, "Please avoid truck traffic on Northern Lights Boulevard." And I'm not exactly sure what it's meant to say, but it went up, as far as I know, either late Saturday or early Sunday. And I noticed, because I did ride down there yesterday, there are no similar signs on Northern Lights between Postmark and Lakewood Drive. So that is the only sign I saw. But I find it very confusing.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, that is almost like, you know, like maybe we're supposed to avoid their traffic and we're supposed to drive on the other streets.
Right.
So it is puzzling. This is a follow-up from when John Isaacs, Anna Brawley, and I met with interim manager Craig Campbell and other key people with the airport. We've met with them about 3 times, and one of our requests, or I think it may have been Craig's suggestion, that postage or signage be posted on Postmark Drive to all those operators at North Air Park that they shouldn't be using West Northern Lights. So so we did follow through with at least one sign, and that's moving forward. Except I agree that the wording could be much stronger and more clear. And we'll have to chat with the airport about that. And Megan, if you want to make a note about our discussion at this meeting to your boss, thank him for following through on something that we had chatted with him about. But I think that we potentially need to collaborate with wording that is better suited.
I will.
Kathy?
We'll be in communication.
Kathy?
Yes.
Just a quick question. Can Jackie repeat who she made this contact with? I just couldn't catch that at the very beginning. Just
It was Bradley Coy. He is the municipal traffic engineer.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks for all your effort
You're
on
welcome.
this.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
Brad is the one that took Stephanie Mormello's position
Gotcha.
a while back. So if you remember Stephanie. And Lauren, you've got a question, or you've got your hand raised?
Yeah, I was just going to say that that process that Jackie was told seems rather tedious. And it seems to me that if somebody doesn't really want to make the change or doesn't want to get on it, then just drag it out. And I would suggest we could start with point number 5, which is convene the people who are driving. We know who they are. We have video footage, and convene them and remind them that that's not the primary route that ought to be used. And that is the agreement that I had with the airport 30 years ago when the North Air Park went in. It's people forget some of these things, but we need to remind them. And I appreciate Craig Campbell really taking an interest in it. But anyway, that's my take. Is we could move a lot faster on it and probably get some results if we just start at point number 5.
While I agree with what you say, and believe me, I let him know that, I understand that they have to do their due diligence. And as far as the freight community, they have the right to use West Northern Lights Boulevard because of the fact that it is designated a minor arterial, which comes to point 2, which is to evaluate the classification and design. It is classified a minor arterial. It is designed neighborhood collector. That's where the confusion lies.
Yeah.
So those points are simply them doing their due diligence, because nothing's going to change if they're in the right for using it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't even know what to say, because I agree with you, Lauren, and I hear what you're saying, Jackie. If we wanted the muni to shortcut it at this point, then, that could backfire. So I think, maybe we should just make sure that this does continue moving forward and the muni is looking at this, and we want updates from them, and via Jackie, if you're going to call them every month, then that's.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And
Okay.
Lauren, you were, as I recall, on the Northern Lights Committee, and I did provide Bradley with the printout that was made by that committee called Unsafe at Any Speed. I also provided him with photographs that I took last summer when the city took down the fences along Northern Lights on the south side, showing how close to the road these houses, the back doors of these houses are, and how close the trucks are traveling to them. So they understand what's at stake here. But again, the classification is the bottom line. Yes, they should be using International. That is true. International has more lanes and a higher speed limit and fewer stoplights. But I believe, Kathy, you said at one time, because we talked about going to the trucking association. Well, they're going to say the same thing. It's a minor arterial. They can use it. So we have to start at the beginning.
Yeah, and I have attended via Zoom a couple of their meetings and have brought it out both times, and I get dead silence in return.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
respond to what I say when I, they get through the agenda, and then it's, public comment, and I give my spiel, and I get zero response, and go, anybody else? Okay, meeting adjourned.
So yeah, we have to start back at the beginning.
Okay.
And I will keep the council posted as to what I find out.
Okay, well, thank you again. And
you're welcome.
And Next is, as Megan had mentioned, and there was Lakewood User Group and Town Hall meeting on this last Monday, and John Isaacs and Dan Gleason and Kathy Gleason and Steve Montooth attended. And I couldn't even begin to try and cover what they did. And I know Megan was there, so I finally got to meet you in person, and that was very nice. Is essentially somebody from FAA, and then as others, you know, airport staffing and giving reports as they do every time we have a Lakewood User Group meeting. You know, the focus was on the relocation of the Anchorage control tower to Charlie parking, which then is necessitating the relocation of Charlie parking, tie down spaces. And they have chosen an area that they called an extension of Echo parking. That would be north, and they could drive from West Northern Lights and inward south would have to be relocated. And there's lots of significant impacts associated with that. But attendees were provided an overview, and a lot of GA discussions were taking place with regard to that move. And there will be an environmental assessment done on that whole moving pieces of the puzzle around at the airport. But John Isaacs, our co-chair of the Land Use Committee, is really highly recommending that we send out a letter asking for a scoping ability to provide scoping items that we want to see covered in the environmental assessment, which will come out in the fall. So we're going to just continue following that and see if we can get any headway made on that direction. One of the things that I don't remember to point out every time we're talking about Turnagain Bog wetlands, but I need to remember, is that in 2000 and 2001, when the Assembly approved using the airport using municipal Clat Bog wetland credits to do a whole lot of development in Class A wetlands at the airport in both Turnagain Bog and Postmark Bog, that a big caveat of that was that the Turnagain Bog areas closest to the Turnagain neighborhood and in the area where they want to relocate Charlie parking, that part of the bog, there needs to be a separate joint muni state master plan convened that would give us an opportunity to have permanent buffers and acreage set aside without development. And that was a key condition of the municipality allowing the airport to get wetland credits for the Corps of Engineers. And that doesn't come up at all. No matter what we're talking about, leasing east of the airstrip. And there's, you know, multiple leases now that are going to put in bids for that. And then the relocation of Charlie parking. And I think that at some point we may need to, you know, dialogue with the municipality on that and see where they're at on forcing that issue. But that's going to take a whole lot of effort, and you to be reminded of that. And I did that especially to the FAA representative on Monday. So for those of you who weren't there, do you have any quick questions on that? A lot of information was covered, and I'm going to ask for their PowerPoint presentation so that it can be posted on our website, just so anybody could access that. Okay, if there isn't anything, then we'll get on to a couple of potential action items. And one is ratification of a Turnagain Community Council letter that was sent out. Let's see, on March 19th. Before the comment deadline, we had been requested to provide information to the Anchorage National Historic Preservation Act people to identify any kind of historical significance land with regard to the extension of the Fish Creek Trail connection between West Northern Lights and the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail in the vicinity of Fish Creek Estuary. And so a letter was sent to them by their deadline, and we have not gotten a response, but we need to ratify that since that was after our March meeting that letter was sent. So it was sent out with the meeting notice. Hopefully people have a chance to review it. It's fairly short. It essentially, we thank them for reaching out to us, and we noted that they were reaching out also to Alaska Native Tribal and ANSA corporations, and felt like that they would have the most appropriate knowledge regarding traditional use and cultural significance of the Fish Creek Estuary. And the Anchorage Association for Historic Preservation is likely to have the most accurate information on Anchorage settler use and structures in the project area. And we also reviewed a comment letter submitted by Great Land Trust to this entity as well. And we supported their observations that the estuary is one of the last relatively untouched estuaries in Anchorage, that it may be a natural landscape of cultural significance and may qualify as a historically important land area, and therefore may be eligible for inclusion in the National Register of Historic Places. So that's the essence of our comment letter. So I would love to entertain a motion to go ahead and ratify this letter that was sent out on March 19th by the board. Would
This is
anybody
Pat,
like
I
to-
so move.
Thank you, Pat.
I'll second this, Kathleen.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Does anybody have any questions or comments on what we sent? Clearly, this was a step that the consultants and project managers of the Fish Creek Trail connection, it's a step they have to go through when they're doing their due diligence on this project. And so, that's why we were contacted to give input. So any comments? If not, then let's go ahead and take a vote. If you support ratification, please raise your hand either electronically or just, if you are showing your video, then so I can see your hand. So let's see, and I'll raise mine. No, don't clap. Okay, there we go. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. Does anybody oppose? Oh, Jim, is that a yes or Jim, are you voting or are you just saying thumbs up for the vote? Okay, well, I'm going to say the vote is 10. Is there any objection? Everybody lower their hand if you were a yes vote. Is anybody object? Okay, then that passes 10-0 ratification, and that will be noted for our records. Sorry, let me write this down. Okay, next item on the agenda, and thank you, Cliff, for hanging in there. In hindsight, should have put you earlier on the agenda, but probably everybody remembers the Vitus Energy taking over the old Shell station at Minnesota Northern Lights, which is in the Turnagain Community Council boundaries. And part of that new development business was acquiring a business license and has an internal liquor store within the facility. And so as part of that process, we passed a memorandum of understanding between Vitus Energy and TCC on July 15th, 2021, that says we should be meeting biannually, just to see if anybody has any input, good, bad, or otherwise, now that there's been a liquor store there. And so this is a good time to be inviting Cliff Brown, who is the gentleman from Vitus that we worked with very closely, and he was very accommodating back a couple of years ago. But their liquor license renewal for this location is now, the application has been submitted for the 2023-2024 calendar years, although they have been granted a temporary license, I saw in the paperwork. And so I just wanted to give the council an opportunity to see if they had any questions or input, or if they want the Turnagain Community Council to take a formal position on this liquor license application renewal for Vitus. And Cliff Brown is here, I'm sure, that can answer any questions that you may have as well. So does anybody have anything to say about the Vitus Energy liquor license renewal application for the next 2 years? Any discussion at all? No complaint.
It looks like
I have a
Kathy
comment.
froze. Yeah, it looks like Kathy froze again. Steve, you're recognized.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of complaints or concerns about high school kids going through there and maybe, stealing things or having access to liquor. And I don't know if that's been an issue or been addressed, but I know it was a big concern here about before they got the license.
I can address that. No, we actually finally have the kids from the high school popping in before, after, and during the lunch breaks, and they're not allowed access over to the liquor store, so they're not stealing anything. The current manager that I have in place is more student friendly than the previous one. And she is working with them and seems to be building a great rapport between the kids and also the people at the school. So, but as far as I am aware, there have been no thefts by any student that goes to that high school.
Good. Thanks, Cliff. Glad to hear it.
In fact, with the separation that's inside the store, the store staff doesn't even let them go past that point in the building, so.
Thanks, Cliff. Hey, Dan, is Kathy? Yeah, okay, I see.
Yeah, I gotta take my computer down. She had a failure of the computer this time, not the internet. It was just a failure of the computer. Shut that. There you go.
And Dan and Kathy,
I
something to
apologize
think about
again.
is
So
with your internet unit there, you can always set up a second SSID so that both of you are on two different channels if that makes a difference when both of you are on at the same time. So it might help.
I'm back on and I just caught the tail end of what you're saying, and that's the problem. I really didn't even understand what you said, but it was a power issue with my laptop, and I apologize.
Oh, okay.
So that's where we're at right now. So I thanks for hanging in there. And if there was any discussion about the liquor license renewal at Vitus Energy, I missed it. Did anybody have anything to say?
Kathy, Steve Montooth asked a question and Cliff responded. And I
Okay.
believe that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
And honestly, in the end, if I ever find out that anybody in that store crosses any boundaries that I've set for letting students anywhere near the liquor, I will personally put them in jail, if not bury them. Until they hit 21 and can make that choice legally, no one in that store should let them pass that point in that store. So that's just a personal concept, and that's understood in the store, that no one, unless they're 21, gets past that barrier and or that point in that store to even go in there to look at stuff. So, and all the other agreements of the MOU, they're in place as far as pricing and what's available and stuff like that. So.
Okay, and as I had put in a quick email to you earlier, Cliff, I've not heard, and I don't believe Anna Brawley did last year, of any complaints at all since Vitus Energy has opened and the liquor store has been operating. So you guys are doing a very good job, it sounds like.
Thank you, and I agree. I mean, the staff I've got in there they're very cautious, they're very protective, they understand not letting people under 21 over there because it's the law, but that's just the standard that I've set across the entire company is so high that if a manager crosses that, then they won't be with me anymore. I mean, I won't tolerate any violation of what I feel is a standard to make sure that the people that are able to make that choice can make their own choices. Anyone that's under the legal age, I have to protect them so that, they can't make that choice now. And when they hit 21, if they want to buy a bottle of something, then they have the same right that I do at almost 60. But until then, it's my responsibility to protect them. And excuse me if it sounds like I'm talking weird if you've heard me in the past, but I just had a full set of dental implants for the entire mouth. So I am having to adjust to the fact that everything in my mouth is foreign right now.
Wow, then I would say you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, you sound good, Cliff. You sound really good.
But
Wow.
it all comes back to, as long as I've been in the retail business, it's always been my responsibility to make sure that I train people to take care of the customers that are of legal age to make their own choices, and to prevent those that are underage from making the wrong decision, because I do not want them to ruin their life before they hit the legal age to do certain things. And even with people that work with me, I say, hey, if you got a problem, come to me. Let's see how we can fix it before you make a decision that's going to ruin your life long term.
Well, I'm glad you could do that, Cliff. It gives me some confidence. I just hear a lot of complaints about teenage boys going around and getting into people's cars and things like that. It's just a traffic pattern that goes over to cars over there. And yeah, I haven't heard complaints about your operation. There is some traffic issues with kids on foot. So.
Well, I haven't seen, I mean, and the one thing that I would like is to be able to provide, I mean, I know a lot of the kids do walk from the high school over to cars and to the other places on the corners, eat stuff for lunch. And, we provide a reasonable lunch type menu as an alternative if they want to leave school and walk in. But I'd much rather them walk a block and not cross the street and not get hit by a car that's traveling 80 miles an hour in a 50 mile an hour zone, if they stop there or cross the road. But yeah, and that's the thing. I want to meet the needs of not only the community, but the high school kids for what they might want for lunch, and be there for them as a service and a provider of, a need versus, hey, I'm out to take all the money that you've got that you can spend with me kind of mentality.
Okay, well, does the body want to take any formal position that I could submit to the state with regard to Vitus Energy's liquor license renewal application, or do we want to just certainly not oppose it? Any suggestions on taking any council action? I don't hear anybody responding, so nobody's making a motion, so I guess that we will not take any action. But we appreciate getting the notice and I guess continue on. Cliff?
Oh, thank you. And I mean, if any of you guys have had a chance to stop in, if there's anything that you like with like a table wine or something like that, that we may or may not have available, just let us know. We'll find a way to get it in and, you know, have it available so that you don't have to make those extra turns on the different corners or go somewhere else and you can get it on the way home. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Cliff, for joining in. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime, and we're gonna have to make sure we follow that biannual attendance here from our MOU. So, you know, in 6 months, just join us again.
Yes.
Okay, great.
And hopefully I'll have the actual store manager. She's very community oriented and like I say, the last time you guys met, we didn't get the actual link until the day after, and it was like it got caught in my spam, and I've got that. It won't happen again. So she can actually attend the next time and share her thoughts on working with the kids, because I mean, the kids seem to love her and they're actually responding to her better than the prior manager. So that's a good thing.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, moving on to committee reports, the Lineary Park Naming Panel. You heard what Austin had covered, that there's an ordinance being introduced this coming week to modify, amend that process. But the process that's in place now is is that there were there's four people on this naming panel, two appointed by the mayor to the assembly, and then we collaborate with the Parks Department to move forward with our our requests. And for those of you who have been with us for a long time, you'll recall that we passed a resolution last year asking that 3 Lineary Park ball field diamonds be named after 3 Anchorage West Little League people who had done a tremendous amount of work and effort with regard to Little League, everything associated with Little League. And all of them unfortunately passed away. Bob Durst, who was also a Turnagain Community Council board member when he passed away, and Marty Smith, as well as John Opensky. And then the Michelle Byron Memorial Garden that's across the path up that goes up to the coastal trail on that lower level. She was unfortunately struck by a drunk driver, and her mother had approached the Parks Department many years ago and asked that a memorial garden be put in that area. And so it's unofficially has had that status for a long time. So we clumped together those 4, and then fifth one was the tennis court improvements that were done in collaboration with the Anchorage Park Foundation and the Hendrickson family back several years ago, and did a lot of good renovations there. And somebody had put up a sign calling them the Hendricks courts. And so now collaboratively, we're requesting that all those things be formally named and approved by the assembly. First, it would have to go through the Parks Commission and then the assembly. We had good discussions. Tom Croce from the Parks Department is working with us, and we met for the first time earlier this afternoon. And there's a lot of discussion with regard to what documentation to follow municipal code and this process, what documentation that we need to show with regard to all 5 of these, that they are, appropriate. Those would be appropriate names for the park's amenities, and down there at Lineary Park. The one that Tom Croce questioned may not meet municipal code standards. or criteria is the tennis courts, because there is some language in Muni Code that specifically says just if you donate a lot of money, doesn't necessarily rise to the level of having something named after you. And basically that's what happened with the tennis courts situation. They were there, they just got renovated. So it's not like the Henderson family built those tennis courts that we're aware of. So anyway, we're going to meet again in 3 weeks and continue our work and our effort. And hopefully we will still be able to move forward with that, even if the Muni Code gets changed before we are done with our due diligence and our process with Lenary, since this did start prior to any kind of changes to Muni Code and naming things after naming municipal amenities or structures or anything after someone within the municipality. So that's just a wrap up of what we're doing. And TCC did pass a resolution last year that supported all of this. And then with regard to the land use committee, John Isaacs unfortunately had some surgery today. Hopefully he's doing well post surgery, post recovery. And so he is not with us to provide land use committee stuff. We did have a meeting on March 25th and our committee did. And while it wasn't well attended, it was, we covered a lot of ground. And I'm not sure I could even attempt to, cover everything because there's so many things going on. But certainly we talked about the tower relocation and the Charlie parking. We talked about the environmental assessment for the FedEx expansion at Postmark Bog and North Air Park and the Alaska Air Cargo. Also at North Air Park that's moving forward, the proposed development and lease applications east of the gravel strip, all the cumulative impacts and public comment that we've submitted. And so we're going to just keep, and also the biggie in the room is the master plan update that where action on that will commence next month, start next month as far as public participation. So we're just waiting to hear when that first meeting is. So if anybody has any specific questions on any of the airport things going on that Turnigan Community Council is following via our land use committee, then let me know. So Steve, I see you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, Kathy, I just don't know. I'm having troubles remembering the dirt land strip and where they're talking about putting hangars up and helicopters. I don't remember what they call that land strip and don't have really a reference to tell people about it. What should I say is that area?
Well, that is the general aviation Lake Hood seaplane base, area of the airport. That airstrip is called the Lake Hood Strip, Lake Hood Gravel Strip.
Simple.
And it's what the general aviation planes, the majority of them, some of them use the paved big boy runways, but the majority of pilots that have tie downs and float planes, they'll use Lake Hood runways. Of course, the Lake Hood is from the Lake Spenard and Lake Hood area. So the general aviation tie downs, they take off on that gravel strip. It's the Lake Hood gravel strip.
All right. And that's not too far from the Lions Park. Right
No, I don't know about the crow flies, but yeah, there's not that much area between the Lions Park and the south end of the strip. There is now, Turnigan Bog wetlands and uplands, nice big, trees that provide buffering between the general aviation activity that's there in that general area and the Turnigan residential areas that go right up to the airport boundary. I mean, literally, there's homes just, not that many feet from the chain link fence. And if they move forward with leasing out that area east of the gravel strip, then that will have huge impacts on those neighbors in particular and that area in general, because massive amount of trees would be cut, wetlands would be filled. It will affect the hydrology of the area. It will move, general aviation noise even closer to the neighborhood and create a lot more of it. So it's that cumulative impact that we keep stressing as our key issues. And we did submit comments when there was an initial one lease application submitted. And it sounded like they were open to leaving some of the trees intact to provide a buffer, just not sure if, that would be adequate enough to really mitigate what the downsides of that development would look like. And an interesting thing that did come out at that meeting on Monday evening, I thought it was a really good question somebody asked, and I hadn't really thought to that level. But they said, okay, if you lease out these parcels to, east of the strip, but that's going to need infrastructure. It's going to need road access, taxiway access on the east side of the strip, utilities, etc. Who's going to pay for that infrastructure so that a developer can develop the lease that they want to build on, that all that's in place so they can actually operate? And the response from Terry Linseth was, that's up to the developer. We're not funding any of that. We're not taking the responsibility to put all that infrastructure in. That would be up to the leaseholder or holders who are developing in that area. And I thought that was pretty significant, because that would be a huge added expense above one, what they would pay the airport for a lease, and two, the development of their own, operational business. In this case, I think it would be tea hangers and other, operations. So I don't know the significance of that. To me, I was surprised to hear that. And I don't know how the potential applicants are going to respond to that, to the answer to that question.
And also, I didn't know whether the communities right on the other side of that fence, people in the community, whether they would know or have the avenue to have some input. So,
well, husband Dan and I personally, when we first found out about the first application last year, printed out flyers and notices with maps and everything, and drove around and got everybody's addresses, and I mailed them notices before the comment time period for that lease application last summer. And so we did try and notify everybody who within, a certain range of that neighborhood. We tried to get the word out, and so, then that generated their own comments to the airport as well. I don't know how many comment letters they got, but they certainly got more than just turning in community councils. And they're very concerned. Overall, they're very concerned.
Thank you, you and Dan for doing that. I appreciate that outreach.
Yeah, it was just a good way to get the word out and let them know about something that's really going to be impactful to their immediate neighborhood. Okay, so any questions about, and I know we're right on the cusp of adjourning unless we extend. So does anybody have any questions? We're just going to continue following the multiple things that are going on out at the airport. So your involvement at the land use committee level would be so welcome and appreciated. And just stay tuned, and we'll keep everybody, notified of when we're going to, take any additional action or have more meetings scheduled or write up any comment letters. So. Okay, is there anything else, or can I entertain a motion to adjourn? Anybody out there?
This is Carolyn. I'll move to adjourn.
Okay.
This is Pat. I'll second.
Okay, is there any objection to adjourn our April 6th TCC meeting? If not, meeting is adjourned. Gavel, gavel.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. Thank you so much for your participation. We really appreciate it. Take care,
Thanks
everybody.
for adjourning,
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Good
You
night.
bet. Good
Thank you.
night.